Am I a 23F placeholder for my boyfriend 26M, who still wants his ex 28F? 1. LDR for 4 months. I always come visit him. He doesn't come to my state to see me. 2. On/off with ex for 8 years. 3. Ex wouldn't stop calling. My boyfriend had me call her to tell her to leave us alone. 4. Overheard my boyfriend and his friend talking about my boyfriend's ex. His friend said, nah, ex's name / she's cool. IF / CK with her. 5. Ex was calling yesterday non-stop and he wouldn't tell his ex I'm his girlfriend and to leave him alone. 6. Checked my boyfriend's phone when he was asleep and he has been calling her using a burner app. He called her 50 times in the last month. The calls weren't picked up by her. Need advice on how to present these findings to him. My ticket to leave is not until after Valentine's Day. Too long didn't read. Boyfriend of 4 months won't tell his ex to leave him alone. Called her 50 times. Need advice on how to present these findings to him. Just move on, especially from LDR after 4 months. This guy isn't even that into you. He's not over his ex, sounds like he needs some time alone to figure it out. He has a burner phone and you're still questioning if he's loyal to you. Run away and don't look back. You keep posting this. Why? Stop making excuses and imposing exit windows on yourself. Say goodbye to him. Why would you want a relationship with someone who isn't willing to stand up for your relationship? Instead he has you talk to the ex instead of manning up and telling his ex to knock her shit off. That's messed up. You deserve better, and you shouldn't be fighting his fights. That's all the evidence you need. Thing is, why do you need to present these findings to him? Are you a lawyer? Is this evidence going to a jury of your peers? No. You have every reason to move on and find a better relationship with someone who actually respects and is a cheerleader for your heart. I don't think staying is any worth it. But why do you have to wait until after Valentine's Day? She mentioned tickets, so she might have flown out to see him, or had bus or train reservations. I hope she can change them without too much hassle. My F43 son M16 inadvertently told his friends about his sister's F16 abortion. My son and my daughter recently got into an argument, one of their many, about their political differences, and this one I wasn't aware of because it happened while I was at work. I work from 8 to 5 every day, and my husband works longer than that. We've caught a few arguments on random occasions and tell them that home should be where you feel comfortable to talk about whatever you feel comfortable talking about. Although if someone doesn't want to hear it, you should respect their request/space. Well, after their latest argument that, I later learned, ended on bad terms and a few insulting words/jabs, my son played a prank that turned out horribly. He went into her room and took her journal behind her back, and then proceeded to show another friend who had come over. However, unbeknownst to him while going through it together, he came across something that was in regards to an abortion that she had somewhat recently, and his friend probably, from what he told me, saw this too at the same time he did. Well, the reason I found out was because that friend told someone, and before long, some people who had no business knowing about it at school learned of it, and I'm currently in the process of deciding a reasonable punishment. At the moment, he's grounded from playing games and hanging with friends after school, although the latter is somewhat irrelevant with school I feel, along with how he doesn't really hang out as much because of the pandemic. My husband says we should go further, but that's what we have so far before a call with my parents to get their opinion on what/if we should do anything more. In regards to the argument, my son had said something about her support of the former president from what they later told me a few days after some found out, and my daughter is very upset and embarrassed and avoiding my son, so I wanted to ask for advice on what to do, along with if we're handling it properly. Too long didn't read. After a political argument between my son and daughter, my son inadvertently told his friend, who told another friend and so on, about an abortion that she had that was supposed to stay in our family, and I'm just trying to get advice on how to best proceed further, along with how to best be supportive of her during this situation. Edit, while me and my husband are more left-leaning personally, we believe that they are more than entitled to their own opinions, but stand against the invasion of privacy that our son displayed. My husband is also considering going to the friends who spread this and maybe even the school, but I also wanted to get opinions on what to do, along with if that last step would be necessary. We're considering more punishment at the moment, but video games and hanging out with friends was our first step. I'll be the first to admit that we've dropped the ball in many areas, prioritized work over more time with them, and could have done a much better job being parents and people. However, around the time of the abortion, we received a lot of pressure to talk her out of it from some, specifically a cousin who she wanted to reach out to for advice on what/how to do, although she instead began hammering Bible stuff down her throat using terms like murder and ungodliness/unholy and other things that were the opposite of comforting when they met, along with telling some other family members too. We did our best to stand up for her, telling off some relatives including her for spreading it, although we did also warn our daughter that people have a tendency to share things that you sometimes tell them not to, but she wanted to meet with her cousin anyway because they were close. In regards to politics, we've explained what we believe and why on occasions when they've asked, and sometimes when they didn't, but if they have different views from ours, I'd like to believe we do our best to encourage them regardless because they are their own people. Some other family members who our cousin told, have tried to tell us that while she live in our house, she has to follow our rules including not allowing her to have an abortion, and we stood with her and told them that regardless of living situations or anything, the decision is hers alone, we cannot and will not force her, and that they were wrong, and that led into other sorts of arguments as well about our beliefs and stuff like that. So, while not perfect and far from it with many mistakes, I am trying my best, and my husband is too, and perhaps this is a wake-up call to adjust our schedules and take more time with our family, but we're just trying to figure out the best way to handle this current situation. Don't go to the friend. It'll just fan the flames. But as to your son, and I'm your age, remember when my brother read my private journal, I found out and told my parents, and my parents did kinda nothing. And there was nothing remotely as private in there as in your daughter's, nor did he show it to anyone else. That's a horrendous invasion of privacy, not a prank gone wrong. I think you should talk to your son. Does he understand how incredibly hurtful he's been? How he absolutely shouldn't have invaded his sister's privacy just because they had a disagreement? I think that punishment alone is not going to help long term. He needs to change his perspective and punishing is just going to make him feel bad. Edit, this is no prank. I feel like I need to reinstate that this is a serious breach of privacy and you need to treat it as such. So you threw her to the wolves at the worst time? Hands off is not an approach for a parent in that position. You defend her vigorously. She can make her own choices. We have nothing to do with it. How limp, how ineffectual. This honestly sounds like the posting of someone who needs remedial parenting classes. Do you remember when there was an unflattering photo of Beyoncé posted to the internet, and her agent tried to get sites to take it down, and it actually became a viral meme to post the pic with a notice saying, "Remember, folks, Beyoncé doesn't want this picture on the internet. The genie is out of the bottle, the toothpaste is out of the tube." There is no way to get the information about your daughter's abortion out of the minds of the kids at the school, and the bigger of a deal that you or your husband make about it, the more tantalizing it will become and the more it will spread. So on that front, just leave things alone. Any damage control you try to do is likely to make things worse for her. But if you leave it, it'll be whatever it is for a while, and then the kids will move on to the next thing. As for your son, punishment that is merely this bad thing is happening to you is less effective than a consequence that will help him to understand why what he did was wrong, why it was hurtful to his sister. What those consequences should be I can't tell you, I'm coming up dry on this one. But whatever it is you come up with should be aimed at teaching, not just punishing. Good for you for standing by your daughter. Carrot this, and block the cousin and any other family members who think they have any right to dictate how you raise your children or how your children live their lives. So, to sum up, your daughter had an abortion and her extended family berated her for it. Your son violated her privacy profoundly, and spread her business around the school. You do little to defend your kid in neither situation. Your son can't play video games, and you need to consult with your parents to see if he deserves more punishment, despite your husband being on board. Honesty, as someone who works with teenagers, it seems like you've got kids who rule the roost at your house and you're very passive about it. I would seriously consider getting your daughter into therapy, because abortions can be pretty traumatic in the best of situations, and she doesn't even have the benefit of a fully developed frontal lobe or life experience to help her process it. At a minimum, she needs help to develop a script for what to do if she encounters people who know her private business. At a maximum, she needs to be thinking about how to reconcile her own need for an abortion so that it doesn't become her idealized regret forever on a pedestal. You should also seriously think about family therapy as a whole, or some kind of therapy for you and your husband focused on parenting stress. It sounds like your kids need more time with the family as a whole, and less time getting radicalized on the internet. Seriously, if you're left-leaning and your daughter was a big Trump supporter, that indicates that you're not embodying and communicating your values effectively to her, because there's a pretty big gap there. Your son needs real consequences for violating his sister's privacy, because it's never okay to be hurtful as retaliation. It doesn't matter if the most salacious thing she'd written was her love of One Direction, what he did wasn't okay. He needs to talk out what he thought would happen, what actually happened, was it predictable, what are better ways to direct anger, whether anyone deserves this kind of thing, etc. This is when his morality gets formed as well. Consider researching and doing some restorative justice within the family. Boyfriend, 30M, brought up me, 30F, moving in. I don't know how to tell him I don't want to. We've been together 3 years. I live within almost walking distance, so as it stands I'm there a lot, but I make a pretty cognizant effort not to leave belongings over there, not to be over when he isn't home, and replaced toileters/food/home goods I've used. Boyfriend just recently finished up a lot of home improvements, which he originally embarked on because he was working from home and wanted to give his place more resale value. Over the weekend, he capped off the last project on the original to-do list, and I casually asked him what he planned to do with his guest bedroom, which he notably didn't touch. He mentioned he'd like to reserve that for when I move in, since I'd probably want my own office/craft room. The when part of that conversation scared me. I don't really have any intention of moving into that house, and I'm not sure how to tell him. I'd planned on buying my own house, which he was aware of, but COVID hit and then I lost my job in the fall, so that plan has been set back at least a year. I still plan to get back on track with that. Moreover, his house is uncomfortable for me for a lot of reasons. He bought this place with his ex-wife, with the intention of them raising a family there together. Gone before I came into the picture, she got cold feet less than a year in and left. Project work feels like an attempt to band-aid the fact that she picked out all of the original furnishings. While it is different looking now, I'm still pretty uncomfortable with the idea that I'm living in another woman's dream home, let slip by his mother when we had too much wine 1 year. On the practical level, he has 3 dogs that sleep in the bed with us. This wasn't originally the case. There's been some boundary creep over the years. It's impossible to get a good night's sleep, and right now I have the option of going back to my place if I have something important in the morning. One is also a jumper and prone to taking food off the counter, so cooking at his place gets tremendously stressful for me. If I'm making something complicated, I cook at my place and bring it over later. No level of home remodeling is going to fix that, nor moving into a different house with him, likely, and I don't know how to tackle it. On a mundane level, we have conflicting habits, none of which were really apparent until COVID and we started spending a lot of time together. We're both morning shower people and his hot water heater isn't substantial for 2 people. I like to read before bed. He needs to fall asleep to the TV. I give in and watch TV with him when I'm over, and tend to read on a tablet after he falls asleep. I like to host my out-of-town friends, and thankfully, so does my landlord. He'd rather die than have someone stay at his house overnight, to the point where he encourages they stay with me or his mother. He needs all chores completed immediately when he gets home from work. When I was still working I'd go work out. We've both suffered from severe depression and are trying to avoid relapse, so our schedules are pretty important to us. However, I'm far more willing to adjust mine right now. because I'm not working. When I eventually find a job, I'd like a chance to fix my routine to what it was. We've never really discussed this before. I had a bad incident at my previous apartment complex and took the opportunity to break lease without penalty, so he offered to let me move in then. However, that was 2 months into casually dating, so I was obviously not going to take him up on that, and instead moved in nearby. We haven't discussed it since because my current location is hella convenient. I'd rather keep up this arrangement for a few more years, since we have no intention of being married, and my currently landlord has no interest in me moving out. She's elderly and enjoys having someone that can do practical things around the house. TL, Dr. Boyfriend brought up me moving in, and I don't want to. Not sure how to tell him that the separation is preferable with how we currently live.